Hello, my good friends. How are you today? May God bless you all. I will not introduce anything. You guys watch the video and feel it. Then let's evaluate together. Seattle's skyline glittered like a promise that Jada Thompson could never quite reach. The rain fell in relentless sheets, blurring the neon lights of Belltown's high-rises as she stood on the penthouse balcony, the cold biting through the oversized flannel shirt she'd borrowed. Her dark curls clung to her face, soaked from the drizzle, and her brown eyes shimmered with unshed tears. Below, the city hummed cars, honking distant laughter from late-night bars. But up here, it was just her. The storm, and the weight of a world that didn't feel like hers. Noah Bennett stood a few feet away, his blonde hair damp and tousled, his green eyes catching the glow of the city. He was a little drunk, his tie loosened from the party, still raging inside where Seattle's elite sipped overpriced champagne. The music pulsed faintly through the glass doors, but out here it was drowned by the rain. Noah's voice was low, raw, cutting through the noise in her head. Jada, you're not like anyone I've ever met. You're real. You make me want to be better. Her heart pounded a mix of fear and something she didn't dare name. She shouldn't be here in this glittering penthouse wearing his shirt, standing so close to a man who could buy half the city. But his words, his gaze, they pinned her in place. Before she could think, he stepped closer, his hand brushing her cheek, warm against the chill. Then he kissed her fierce and desperate, like he was afraid she'd vanish into the rain. For a moment she let herself sink into it. The heat of his lips, the way his hands pulled her closer. The city lights spinning around them, but reality crashed in like a wave. Jada pushed him away, her breath ragged. I can't. Not now. Not like this. Her voice trembled, and she turned, hugging herself against the cold, the ache in her chest sharper than the wind. Noah stood frozen, his expression a mix of regret and longing, but she couldn't look at him. Not yet. She slipped back inside, the party's noise swallowing her, leaving the balcony and that kiss behind. How had it come to this? 3 weeks ago. Jada had been a nobody, a single mom with nothing but a battered suitcase and a daughter to protect. Now she was here in Noah Bennett's world, caught in a moment that could change everything or break her heart. Let's rewind back to the night it all began under the rain-soaked streets of Seattle, where a chance encounter set this whole story in motion. 3 weeks earlier, the rain in Seattle's Rainier Valley was a different kind of cruel. It wasn't the romantic drizzle of postcards. It was a bone-chilling downpour that seeped through Jada's worn-out jacket, plastering her curls to her neck. She clutched her 6-year-old daughter, Mia, against her chest, the girl's tiny body shivering under a thin blanket. The streetlights flickered, casting long shadows on the cracked sidewalk, and the air smelled of wet asphalt and desperation. Jada's world had crumbled that morning. Her father, a man hardened by years of disappointment, had finally snapped. "You're a disgrace," he'd bellowed, slamming his fist on the kitchen table, bills and empty beer cans rattling. "I've carried you long enough. Get out and take that kid with you." His words cut deeper than the cold, echoing the shame he'd heaped on her since she got pregnant at 25. Jada had begged, clutching a faded photo of her late mother. But he just pointed to a suitcase packed with her clothes and Mia's stuffed bunny. "Don't come back." Now. Hours later, Jada was homeless, her sneakers squelching with every step. Mia, half asleep, mumbled, "Mommy, are we going home?" Jada's throat tightened. "Soon, baby," she lied, pulling the blanket tighter around her daughter. She'd spent the day knocking on shelter doors, but the story was always the same. No beds, no funds, or a polite try somewhere else. One volunteer, a kind-eyed woman, had slipped her a granola bar, but even that small mercy couldn't fill the hole in Jada's chest. She was a mother with nothing. No money, no plan, no hope. The bus station on South Jackson Street was her last resort. It was grimy, the neon sign buzzing faintly. Travelers hustling past with suitcases and coffee cups. Jada sank onto a cracked bench. Mia curled in her lap, the rain drumming on the overhang above. Her hands trembled as she fished out her last dollar to buy a vending machine. Hot chocolate, the watery kind that tasted more like sugar than cocoa. She handed it to Mia, who sipped it slowly, her big brown eyes heavy with trust. Jada stroked her daughter's braided hair, whispering, "We're gonna be okay," even as her own heart screamed otherwise. That's when she heard the roar of an engine. A cherry-red Porsche 911 screeched to a stop across the street, its headlights cutting through the rain. The driver's door swung open and a young guy stepped out, oblivious to the downpour soaking his leather jacket. He was tall, maybe mid-20s, with messy blonde hair and a grin that screamed trouble. Jada tensed, her street smarts kicking in. Guys like that didn't stop in Rainier Valley unless they wanted something. "Hey," he called, jogging toward the station, his sneakers splashing in puddles. "You know where the nearest gas station is?" His voice was casual, like he was asking for directions to a Starbucks. Jada ignored him, pulling Mia closer, but he didn't back off. He stopped under the overhang, shaking water from his hair like a dog. "Come on, I'm lost, and my GPS is crap in this rain." Jada glanced at him, her guard up. He didn't look dangerous, just out of place. His jacket probably cost more than her last month's rent, and his eyes, green bright, a little too earnest, didn't match the cocky vibe. "There's a Chevron 2 blocks down," she said curtly, nodding toward the street. "Now leave us alone." He didn't move. Instead, his gaze flicked to Mia, then back to Jada, and something shifted in his expression. "Whoa, hold up. You guys okay? You're like soaked." His tone softened, and Jada's stomach twisted. She didn't need pity, especially not from some rich kid playing Good Samaritan. "We're fine," she snapped, but her voice cracked, betraying her. Mia stirred, blinking up at the stranger, and Jada's heart raced. She couldn't afford to trust anyone. Not now. Not when she had nothing left. The guy crouched down, keeping his distance, his hands raised like he was calming a stray cat. "Look, I'm not a creep, I swear, name's Noah. You can't stay out here in this storm, not with a kid." He glanced at Mia, who was clutching her bunny, and his grin faltered. "I've got a place nearby. Warm, dry, no strings. You can crash for the night." Jada's mind screamed. No. Her whole life she'd been taught to distrust strangers, especially ones who looked like they stepped out of a magazine ad. But the rain was relentless. Mia was shivering, and the shelters were full. She studied Noah, searching for a red flag, but all she saw was a guy who seemed genuinely rattled by her situation. "Why would you help us?" she asked, her voice low. "You don't even know me." Noah shrugged, rain dripping off his nose. "I don't know. Maybe I'm just bored, or maybe I've had too much whiskey tonight." He flashed a lopsided smile, then sobered. "Seriously, though, I've got a big-ass apartment and no one to share it with. Let me do one decent thing for once." Jada hesitated, her instincts at war. But Mia's small hand squeezed hers, and the cold was seeping deeper into her bones. She had no other options. One night, she said finally, her voice firm, "And if you try anything, I'll break your nose." Noah laughed, standing up. "Deal. I like my nose where it is." He gestured to the Porsche. "Come on, let's get you guys out of this mess." The walk to the car felt like a leap off a cliff. Jada held Mia tight, her heart thudding as Noah opened the passenger door, fumbling with his phone and dropping it into a puddle. "Shit. Sorry," he muttered, fishing it out, and Jada almost smiled despite herself. He was a mess, but not the dangerous kind. At least she hoped not. The Porsche's interior smelled of leather and cologne, a world away from the bus station's damp grit. Mia, wide-eyed, whispered, "Mommy, is this a spaceship?" Noah overheard and chuckled from the driver's seat. "Close enough, kid. Buckle up, we're blasting off to Belltown." The drive was short but surreal. Seattle's lights blurred past, reflecting on the wet streets, and Jada's mind raced. Who was this guy? Why was he doing this? She kept one hand on Mia, ready to bolt at the first sign of trouble. Noah, oblivious to her tension, rambled about getting lost after a party at Capitol Hill. I was supposed to meet some friends, but I took a wrong turn and bam, here we are. Fate, right? Jada didn't answer, her eyes fixed on the road. Fate wasn't something she believed in anymore, not after her mother died, not after her father's betrayal, not after years of scraping by as a single mom. But as the Porsche pulled into an underground garage beneath a sleek high-rise, she couldn't deny that something had shifted tonight. Noah led them through a marble lobby where a doorman in a crisp uniform nodded respectfully. "Evening, Mr. Bennett," he said, and Jada's stomach flipped. Mr. Bennett. This wasn't just some rich kid. He was somebody. The elevator ride to the penthouse was silent, Mia's head resting on Jada's shoulder, Noah fidgeting with his keys. When the doors opened, Jada's breath caught. The penthouse was straight out of a movie, floor-to-ceiling windows, with views of Puget Sound, polished wood floors, a sleek leather couch that probably cost more than her old apartment. A half-empty whiskey bottle sat on the kitchen island next to a pizza box and a stack of unopened mail. It was luxurious, but lived in like Noah hadn't quite figured out how to fill the space. "Welcome to my castle," Noah said, spreading his arms with a grin. "Bedrooms are down the hall. Pick whichever you want. I'll crash on the couch." Jada's eyes narrowed. "You're not sleeping in here with us?" "Nah, I'm good." He grabbed a blanket from the couch, already kicking off his sneakers. "There's towels in the bathroom and probably some snacks in the fridge. Help yourself." Mia, suddenly awake, tugged Jada's sleeve. "Mommy, does he live in a castle? Like a prince?" Her voice was loud enough for Noah to hear, and he laughed, crouching to her level. "Not a prince, kid. Just a guy with a cool car." He winked, and Mia giggled, clutching her bunny tighter. Jada's chest tightened. Mia's laughter was rare these days, and seeing it sparked by this stranger made her both grateful and wary. "Thank you," she said quietly, meeting Noah's eyes. "But don't think this makes us friends." Noah's grin didn't fade. "Fair enough. Get some rest, Jada. You look like you need it." She bristled, but didn't argue. She carried Mia to a guest room, the bed so soft it felt like sinking into a cloud. The walls were painted a calming gray, and a framed photo of Mount Rainier hung above the dresser. Jada tucked Mia in her daughter, already drifting off the bunny nestled under her chin. But sleep didn't come easily for Jada. She lay awake staring at the ceiling, her mind a storm of questions. Was Noah for real? Or was this just a game to him? A rich guy's whim, her father's voice echoed in her head. "Nothing's free. Jada, nobody helps without a price." She pushed the thought away, focusing on Mia's steady breathing. Whatever Noah's deal was, she'd figure it out tomorrow. For now, they were safe, dry and warm. A miracle she hadn't dared hope for. As the city lights twinkled outside, Jada closed her eyes, praying this wasn't a mistake. Hey, if you're loving Jada's story so far, drop a comment and let me know what you think. Are you Team Noah, or do you think Jada's right to keep her guard up? Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next under Seattle's rainy skies. Where are you watching from, and what's the vibe where you are? Let's keep this journey going. Jada Thompson woke to the smell of burning toast and the shrill beep of a smoke alarm. Her heart-jolted instincts kicking in as she bolted upright expecting danger. But the plush gray bedding and the soft glow of Seattle's morning light through floor-to-ceiling windows reminded her where she was. Noah Bennett's penthouse, a world away from the rain-soaked streets of Rainier Valley. The alarm kept wailing, and from the kitchen a familiar voice cursed loudly. "Shit, come on. Not again." Jada rubbed her eyes, glancing at Mia, who was still fast asleep. Her braided hair splayed across the pillow, clutching her stuffed bunny. The sight of her daughter safe and warm eased the knot in Jada's chest, but only slightly. She slipped out of bed, pulling on her damp jeans from last night, and tiptoed toward the source of the chaos. The penthouse kitchen was a disaster. Noah stood on a bar stool waving a dish towel at the smoke detector like he was trying to shoo a swarm of bees. A blackened slice of toast smoldered on the counter, and the air smelled of charred bread and desperation. He hadn't noticed her yet, too busy muttering, "I swear I'm better at ordering pizza." Jada couldn't help it. She laughed. The sound startled Noah, who nearly toppled off the stool, catching himself on the counter. "Jesus, Jada warn a guy," he said, his green eyes wide, blonde hair sticking up in every direction. He was in a faded Seahawks t-shirt and sweatpants, a far cry from the slick leather jacket guy from last night. "You trying to burn the place down?" Jada asked, crossing her arms. Her voice was sharp, but a smile tugged at her lips. For a millionaire, Noah was a mess, and somehow that made him less intimidating. "Nah, just experimenting with breakfast." He hopped off the stool, tossing the towel aside. "I figured you and the kid might want something hot. Clearly, I'm not Gordon Ramsay." Jada raised an eyebrow, nodding at the toast. "Clearly you got anything that's not charcoal." Noah grinned undeterred and opened the fridge. "Cereal yogurt I've got a..." He squinted at a container. "Expired hummus, scratch that." He pulled out a box of Lucky Charms and shook it like a trophy. "This work." Jada shook her head, amused despite herself. "Me'll love it." "Thanks." She moved to help, but Noah waved her off, grabbing bowls and spoons with the enthusiasm of a kid showing off a new toy. It was disarming, his eagerness, and Jada caught herself wondering if this was all an act. Nobody was this nice for no reason. As they set up breakfast, Mia patted in, rubbing her eyes, her bunny dangling from one hand. "Mommy, what's that noise?" she asked, then spotted Noah and froze her big brown eyes, curious. "Shoot supercar." Noah laughed, crouching to her level. "That's me, kid." "You sleep okay in the castle?" Mia nodded shyly, and Jada's heart squeezed. Mia hadn't smiled this much in weeks, and Noah, for all his chaos, seemed to have a knack for pulling it out of her. They sat at the kitchen island, Mia crunching on Lucky Charms, Jada sipping coffee that Noah had miraculously managed not to burn. The penthouse felt too big, too shiny, with its sleek appliances and views of Puget Sound. Jada's old apartment in Rainier Valley had peeling paint and a leaky faucet. This place was like stepping into a magazine. She felt out of place, her damp clothes and scuffed sneakers, a stark contrast to the polished wood floors. So Noah said, leaning back in his stool, "What's the plan today? You guys need a ride somewhere, or like a job?" "I know people." Jada stiffened her guard, snapping back up. "We're not your charity case, Noah." Her tone was colder than she meant, but the words spilled out. "I appreciate last night, but I'll figure it out." Noah's grin faltered, but he didn't push fair enough. Just saying, "I've got connections." No strings. He held up his hands, mimicking her distrust from last night, and Jada almost smiled again, almost Mia oblivious to the tension piped up. "Mommy, can we stay here?" "It's like a hotel." Her voice was bright, and Jada's stomach twisted. She couldn't explain to a 6-year-old why this wasn't their home, why they couldn't trust a stranger no matter how kind he seemed. "We'll see, baby," Jada said, forcing a smile. To Noah she added, "I've got a lead on a job at a sewing shop downtown. I just need to get there for an interview." Noah's eyes lit up. "Nice Pike Place market, right? I can drive you." It's on my way to, wherever I'm going. He scratched his head clearly, making it up as he went, and Jada shook her head, half exasperated, half amused. No thanks. We'll take the bus. She stood gathering Mia's things, determined to keep some control. Noah looked like he wanted to argue, but he just shrugged, grabbing another bowl of cereal. Suit yourself. But if you change your mind, supercar's ready. He winked at Mia, who giggled, and Jada rolled her eyes, hiding the warmth creeping into her chest. The bus ride to Pike Place Market was a jolt back to reality. Seattle's streets were gray and slick, the air thick with the scent of rain and coffee. Jada held Mia's hand, navigating the crowded sidewalks, her mind racing. The job at the sewing shop was her lifeline, a chance to rebuild, to prove she could provide for Mia without handouts. But Noah's offer lingered, tempting and dangerous. What did he want? Her father's voice echoed again. Nothing's free. Jada. They stopped at a small cafe called Rainy Days, a cozy spot tucked between a fish market and a flower stall. The sign was hand-painted. The windows steamed from the warmth inside, and the smell of fresh espresso was a welcome reprieve from the cold. Jada had an hour before her interview, and she needed to keep Mia occupied. Plus, she couldn't afford to look like a drowned rat when she walked into the shop. Inside the cafe, buzzed with locals, hipsters, typing on laptops, old-timers, reading newspapers, a barista humming to a jazz playlist. The man behind the counter looked up, his dark eyes warm, his smile easy. He was in his mid-40s, broad-shouldered, with a neatly trimmed beard and a flannel shirt that screamed, "Seattle, welcome to Rainy Days," he said, his voice deep and smooth. "What can I get you?" Jada hesitated, checking her wallet. She had a few bucks left, enough for a coffee, maybe a muffin for Mia. "Just a black coffee, please, and a blueberry muffin for her." She nodded at Mia, who was staring at a display of pastries, her bunny tucked under her arm. The man, his name tag read. Leroy nodded, but instead of ringing her up, he slid the coffee and muffin across the counter. "On the house," he said, waving off her protest. "Seattle rains enough to make anyone blue. Consider this my good deed for the day." Jada's pride bristled, but Mia's excited. "Thank you." "Shoot." Coffee melted her resistance. She managed a quiet, "Appreciate it." And Leroy's smile widened, like he understood her reluctance. They settled at a corner table, Mia nibbling her muffin, Jada sipping the coffee, its warmth seeping into her bones. Leroy came by to check on them, crouching to Mia's level. "You like that muffin, little lady?" he asked, and Mia nodded, crumbs on her chin. "It's yummy." "You make it?" she asked, and Leroy chuckled. "Nah, my son helps with the baking. He's 16, thinks he's a chef already." He glanced at Jada, his expression softening. "You new around here? Haven't seen you before." Jada tensed, unsure how much to share. "Just passing through," she said, keeping it vague. "Got a job interview nearby?" Leroy nodded, not prying. "Well, good luck. And if you need a coffee fix, you know where to find me." He stood returning to the counter, and Jada felt a flicker of gratitude. Leroy's kindness was different from Noah's. Steady, grounded, like he'd seen enough of the world to know when someone was struggling. Mia, oblivious, tugged Jada's sleeve. "Shoot. Coffee's nice. Mommy. Can we come back?" Jada smiled, brushing a crumb from her daughter's cheek. "Maybe, baby." The moment of peace shattered when the cafe door swung open and Noah Bennett strolled in his leather jacket speckled with rain. Jada's jaw dropped. "What the hell?" she muttered, and Mia perked up, waving wildly. "Shoot, supercar!" she squealed, drawing stares from nearby tables. Noah grinned, sauntering over like he owned the place. "Fancy meeting you here," he said, sliding into the chair across from Jada. "Thought I'd grab a coffee before my, meeting." His vagueness was obvious, and Jada narrowed her eyes. "You're stalking us now?" she asked, half serious. But Noah just laughed, leaning back with that infuriatingly charming grin. "Nope, just a happy coincidence. This place has the best lattes in Seattle." He flagged down Leroy, ordering a latte with a casual, "Thanks, man." And Jada couldn't decide if she was annoyed or amused. Noah had a way of making himself at home anywhere, like the world was built for him. Leroy brought the latte, glancing between Jada and Noah with a raised eyebrow. "Friend of yours?" he asked Jada, and she shook her head, exasperated. "Not exactly," she said, just as Noah chimed in. "Best friend." "Actually." Mia giggled, and Jada shot him a look that could have melted steel. The conversation turned absurd when Noah launched into a story about getting lost in Rainier Valley last month. "I ended up in this sketchy alley, right? Thought I was going to get jumped, but it was just a cat. Scariest cat ever, though." He waved his hands for emphasis, and Mia laughed so hard she nearly spilled her milk. Even Leroy, wiping down the counter, chuckled, shaking his head. Jada tried to stay stern, but Noah's ridiculousness was contagious. "You're full of it," she said, sipping her coffee to hide her smile. "You probably made that up to sound cool." "Swear on my Porsche," Noah said, hand over his heart, and Mia gasped like that was the ultimate vow. Jada rolled her eyes, but the tension in her shoulders eased just a little. Then it happened. Jada reached for her coffee, and her sleeve caught the cup, spilling it across the table. "Damn it," she muttered, grabbing napkins, but Noah was faster, tossing her his flannel shirt from the back of his chair. "Here, use this. I've got like 10 more." She hesitated, then took it, mopping up the mess. The shirt smelled faintly of his cologne, and she hated how it made her heart skip. "I'll wash it," she said, avoiding his eyes. "Nah, keep it. Looks better on you anyway," Noah said, his tone teasing, but his gaze soft. Their fingers brushed as she handed it back, and for a split second the cafe faded, the jazz, the chatter, the rain outside. It was just them, and Jada's breath caught her pulse, racing. Mia's voice broke the spell. "Mommy, you're all messy," she said, pointing at Jada's stained shirt, and the moment dissolved into laughter. Jada excused herself to the bathroom, splashing water on her face, trying to shake off the warmth in her chest. Noah was trouble, she told herself. Too rich, too reckless, too young. She couldn't afford to get tangled up in whatever he was offering. When she returned, Noah was showing Mia how to stack sugar packets into a tower, both of them giggling like kids. Leroy caught her eye, his expression unreadable but kind, and Jada felt a pang of guilt. She didn't need complications, not from Noah, not from anyone. She had an interview to nail, a daughter to feed, and a life to rebuild. But as she gathered Mia to leave, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Jada, it's your dad. We need to talk. Come home." Her stomach dropped, the warmth of the cafe replaced by a cold dread. She deleted the message, her jaw tight. But the words lingered, a reminder of everything she was running from Noah. Noticed her shift in mood, his grin fading. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low, and for once he wasn't joking. Jada forced a nod, grabbing Mia's hand. "Yeah, just gotta go." She didn't look back as they left, but she felt Noah's eyes on her, and Leroy's quiet concern like anchors she wasn't ready to hold on to. The hum of sewing machines filled the air at the textile workshop in Pike Place Market, a cozy, cluttered space tucked above a flower stall. Sunlight streamed through the windows, catching specks of dust and casting a warm glow over bolts of fabric, denim, cotton, silk in every shade of the rainbow. Jada. Thompson sat at her new workstation, her fingers steady as she threaded a needle, the familiar rhythm calming her nerves. It had been 3 days since she'd landed the job, and every stitch felt like a small victory, a step toward a life she could call her own. The workshop was a hive of activity. Seamstresses chatted over the clatter of machines pinning patterns and cutting cloth for a big corporate order. Jada's boss, Helen, a wiry woman with gray-streaked hair and a no-nonsense stare, hovered nearby inspecting a pile of blazers. "Nice work." "Jada," she said, holding up a jacket. Jada had hemmed, clean lines, tight stitches. "Keep it up, and you might get some design work soon." Jada's heart skipped a spark of hope igniting design work. She'd dreamed of being a fashion designer as a teenager, sketching dresses in her mother's old notebooks. But life pregnancy, her father's cruelty scraping by, had buried that dream. Now at 32, with Mia to raise, it felt like a fantasy. But Helen's words were a lifeline, and Jada clung to them, her needle moving faster. "Thank you, ma'am," she said, her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. The job was grueling 6-hour shifts 3 days a week with tight deadlines. But it was hers. She'd already earned her first paycheck, a modest sum that felt like a fortune. It meant she could buy Mia new sneakers, maybe even start saving for an apartment. The thought of leaving Noah's penthouse both thrilled and unsettled her. His kindness had saved them, but it came with a weight. Expectations she couldn't name, a pull she couldn't ignore. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. A text from Noah. "Yo, how's the sewing gig?" Mia says. "You're a superhero with a needle." Jada smiled, shaking her head. Noah had a way of sneaking into her day. His goofy texts, a constant reminder of the strange bond they'd formed. She typed back, "It's good." And Mia's biased. Don't let her con you into more Lucky Charms. She tucked the phone away, refocusing on her work. But her mind wandered to Noah. He was a puzzle. Reckless, privileged, yet oddly sincere. Last night he'd helped Mia build a fort out of couch cushions, laughing when she crowned him. Prince supercar with a paper tiara. Jada had watched from the kitchen, her heart softening. But her guard stayed up. Men like Noah didn't stick around, not for women like her. "Thompson." Helen's voice snapped her back. "You're on the corporate event order. They need 50 custom vests for some tech conference. Think you can handle it?" Jada nodded, adrenaline spiking. "Yes, ma'am. I'm on it." She dove into the task, sketching patterns and measuring fabric, her hands moving with a confidence she hadn't felt in years. The vests were simple but sleek with the company's logo, a stylized wave embroidered on the chest. As she worked, she added a subtle flourish to the stitching, a nod to her mother's lessons. Every seam tells a story. Jada, make it yours. By the end of her shift, her wrists ached, but she'd finished a dozen vests, each one flawless. Helen gave her a rare nod of approval, and Jada left the workshop feeling lighter than she had in weeks. She caught a bus to pick up Mia from the after-school program. Noah had insisted on paying for a temporary arrangement he'd said until she got settled. Jada hated relying on him, but Mia's happy chatter about finger painting and new friends made it hard to argue. That evening back at the penthouse, Noah had a surprise. "Pack a jacket," he said, tossing Jada a grin as she walked in. "We're going to Gasworks Park." Mia's orders. Mia bounced on her toes, her braids swinging. "Please, Mommy. There's swings and a big hill." Her eyes sparkled, and Jada couldn't say no. She hadn't taken Mia anywhere fun in months, too busy surviving to think about joy. "All right," Jada said, ruffling Mia's hair, "but no running off. You hear me?" The park was a short drive across Seattle, its rusted industrial structures looming against the backdrop of Lake Union families dotted the grassy hills, kids chasing kites, couples snapping selfies with the skyline. Noah parked his Porsche, looking comically out of place among minivans, and led them to the playground. Mia darted for the swings, squealing, and Jada followed her sneakers sinking into the damp grass. Noah surprised her by jumping in, pushing Mia's swing with exaggerated enthusiasm. "Hiya, Princess Mia," he called, and Mia giggled, kicking her legs. Jada watched her chest tight. Noah was good with Mia, too. Good, and it scared her. What happened when he got bored? When his real life pulled him back? When Mia ran off to climb a slide? Noah joined Jada on a bench, his breath visible in the chilly air. "She's a firecracker," he said, nodding at Mia. "Takes after her mom," Jada snorted, pulling her jacket tighter. "She's braver than me." The words slipped out and she regretted them instantly, but Noah's expression softened. No trace of his usual cockiness. "You're pretty damn brave, Jada," he said quietly. "I mean shit. You're out here raising a kid, starting over, dealing with whatever got you to that bus station. I couldn't do that." Jada's throat tightened. She wanted to brush it off, but his sincerity caught her off guard. "You don't know me, Noah," she said, her voice low. "Not really. Then tell me?" He leaned closer, his green eyes searching hers. "I'm not going anywhere." She hesitated, then spoke her words, halting. "My mom. She taught me to sew. She was my everything kind, strong, always singing. When she died, I was 12. My dad, he shut down, got mean. When I got pregnant with Mia, he called me a failure, kicked me out. I've been fighting to prove him wrong ever since." Noah listened, his usual grin gone, replaced by something raw. "That's heavy," he said finally. "I lost my parents too. Car accident 5 years ago. Left me a pile of money in a company I barely understand. I act like I've got it together, but I'm kind of a mess." Jada met his gaze, seeing the boy beneath the bravado. "You're not doing too bad," she said, a small smile tugging at her lips. "You got us off the street." He shrugged, looking out at the lake. "Yeah, well, you and Mia make it easy to want to help." Their eyes locked, and for a moment the park faded, the kids' laughter, the wind, the city hum. Jada's pulse quickened, but Mia's shout. "Mommy!" Look broke the spell. They laughed, the tension easing, and joined Mia for ice cream from a vendor, vanilla for Jada, chocolate for Mia, strawberry for Noah. The outing left Jada lighter, but a new weight settled when they returned to the penthouse. A woman stood in the lobby, her blonde hair sleek, her designer coat screaming money. She turned her blue eyes, narrowing as they landed on Jada and Mia. "Noah," she purred, ignoring Jada entirely. "You didn't tell me you were playing house?" Noah stiffened his easy grin. "Gone, Vanessa," he said, his tone flat. "What are you doing here?" Jada's stomach churned. Vanessa Harper was everything she wasn't. Polished, privileged, the kind of woman who belonged in Noah's world. Mia clutched Jada's hand, sensing the shift, and Jada squared her shoulders, refusing to shrink. "Thought I'd drop by." "Vanessa," said her smile sharp, "but I see you're entertaining." Her gaze flicked to Jada, dismissive, then to Mia. "Cute kid. Your help's daughter." Jada's blood boiled. "I'm not the help," she said, her voice ice. "I'm a guest, and you might want to watch how you talk in front of my daughter." Vanessa's smile faltered, but she recovered, tossing her hair. "Charming. Noah, we need to talk." "Alone." Noah glanced at Jada, his jaw tight. "Later." "Vanessa." "I'm busy." He ushered Jada and Mia to the elevator, his hand brushing Jada's back, a small gesture that sent a shiver through her. Vanessa's glare followed them, a promise of trouble. Upstairs, Jada busied herself with Mia's bedtime routine, her mind racing. Vanessa's presence was a wake-up call. This penthouse, Noah's kindness, It wasn't her world. She needed to get out fast before she got too comfortable, but as she tucked Mia in, her daughter whispered, "Is shoot supercar mad? No baby," Jada said, kissing her forehead. "He's just got a lot on his plate." The real storm came that weekend. Vanessa, undeterred, announced a small gathering at the penthouse, claiming it was to celebrate a tech deal Noah's company had landed. By Saturday night, the place was packed. Seattle's elite in tailored suits and glittering dresses sipping cocktails to a pulsing EDM playlist. Jada felt like an intruder, her jeans and sweater out of place among the glamour. Mia was asleep in the guest room. Thank God, but Jada couldn't escape the stares, the whispers. Who's she? Noah's charity case. Vanessa, in a slinky red dress, held court, her laughter sharp as she clung to Noah's arm. He looked uncomfortable. His tie loosened his eyes, darting to Jada across the room. She tried to blend into the background, sipping a soda, but Vanessa's voice cut through the noise. "Noah, tell them about Ibiza last year. You were such a bad boy." The crowd laughed, but Noah's smile was strained. "Yeah, ancient history," he muttered, pulling away. Jada's chest tightened. She didn't belong here in this world of excess and ego. She slipped out to the balcony, needing air, needing escape. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, Seattle's lights shimmering below. Jada hugged herself, the cold biting through her sweater, tears prickling her eyes. She was nobody here, a single mom from the wrong side of town, clinging to a dream that felt further away than ever. The balcony door slid open and Noah stepped out, his jacket off his shirt sleeves rolled up. He was a little drunk, his hair mussed, but his eyes were clear, fixed on her. "Jada, you okay?" he asked, his voice low, cutting through the city's hum. She shook her head, wiping her eyes. "I don't belong here, Noah. All of this." She gestured at the penthouse, the party hymn. "It's not me." He stepped closer, the space between them shrinking. "You're wrong," he said, his voice fierce. "You're the realest thing in this place. These people, they're all fake. Vanessa, the suits, the whole damn circus. But you're different. You make me want to be better." Jada's breath caught her heart pounding. He was too close, his cologne mixing with the rain, his gaze pulling her in. "Noah, you don't know what you're saying," she whispered, but her voice trembled, betraying her. "I know exactly what I'm saying," he said, his hand brushing her cheek, warm against the chill. Then he kissed her fierce and desperate, like he was afraid she'd slip away. For a moment, she let herself fall into it. The heat of his lips, the way his hands pulled her closer, the city spinning around them. It was everything she'd buried. Desire, hope, the ache for something more. But fear surged cold and sharp. She pushed him away, her breath ragged. "I can't. Not now. Not like this." She turned, her eyes burning, and fled back inside the party's noise, swallowing her. Noah stood frozen, his expression a mix of regret and longing. But she couldn't face him. Not yet. She locked herself in the guest room, her heart racing, Mia's soft snores grounding her. That kiss had cracked something open, something she wasn't ready to name. Noah wasn't just a rich kid anymore. He was a man who saw her, who wanted her, and that terrified her more than the rain ever could. The rain in Seattle never stopped, but at Pike Place Market it felt like a companion rather than a curse. Jada Thompson hunched under her umbrella, weaving through crowds of tourists, snapping photos of fishmongers, tossing salmon. The air smelled of salt coffee and blooming dahlias from the flower stalls, a chaotic symphony that matched her racing thoughts. It was Monday, her second week at the textile workshop, and she was finally settling into a rhythm, stitching vests, mending blazers, dreaming of designs she might one day create. But a storm was brewing, and it wasn't just the weather. Last weekend's kiss on Noah Bennett's balcony haunted her. She could still feel the heat of his lips, the way his hands had pulled her close, his words. "You make me want to be better," echoing in her mind. She'd pushed him away, scared of what it meant, scared of herself. Since then, they'd danced around each other at the penthouse, polite but distant, like two people afraid to break something fragile. Noah kept his usual grin, joking with Mia, leaving Jada notes about leftovers in the fridge, but his green eyes held a question she wasn't ready to answer. Work was her refuge. The workshop's hum of sewing machines and chatter drowned out her doubts. Jada was midway through embroidering a logo on a vest when her co-worker Tanya, a sharp-tongued seamstress with a knack for gossip, leaned over. "Girl, you hear the buzz?" Tanya whispered, her eyes gleaming. "Some folks saying you're cozying up to that rich boy, Bennett. Word is, you're living in his penthouse." Jada's needle froze mid-stitch, her stomach dropping. "That's not how it is," she said, her voice tight. "He's just helping me and Mia out." Tanya smirked, snipping a thread. "Sure, honey, but people talk, especially when you're—" She stopped, but Jada knew the unspoken word. Black, in a city as progressive as Seattle, prejudice still lingered subtle but sharp, and Jada felt its sting now. She gripped her needle, forcing her hands to stay steady, but the whispers followed her all morning. Co-workers glancing her way, their murmurs just out of earshot. By lunch, the tension was unbearable. Jada slipped out to Rainy Days, the cafe where Leroy Carter poured coffee and offered smiles that felt like home. The place was quieter today, with soft jazz playing and a few regulars nursing lattes. Leroy looked up from the counter, his broad shoulders relaxed, his beard catching the light. "Jada, you're back," he said, his deep voice warm. "Usual black coffee?" She nodded, managing a small smile, and a hot chocolate for Mia. "She's at school, but I'll save it for her." Mia's after-school program was a godsend funded by Noah. For now, though, Jada was determined to cover it herself soon. Every dollar she earned felt like a brick in the wall she was building between her past and her future. Leroy slid the drinks over, waving off her money on me, he said. And when Jada protested, he added, "Seattle's got enough rain to make you blue. Let me brighten your day." His kindness was steady, unshowy, and Jada felt a flicker of guilt. Leroy was safe, reliable, a single dad who understood struggle. Why couldn't her heart lean toward him instead of Noah's chaotic orbit? They chatted as she sipped her coffee, Leroy sharing a story about his son Jamal, who'd burned a batch of muffins for the cafe. "Kid thinks he's the next top chef," Leroy said, chuckling. "I keep telling him, start with the basics." Jada laughed, the knot in her chest loosening, but her phone buzzed, shattering the moment. Another text from her father. "Jada, I'm serious. Come home, we can fix this." Her jaw tightened and she deleted it, but Leroy noticed trouble. He asked, his tone gentle but probing. "Just family stuff," she said, avoiding his eyes. She wasn't ready to unpack her father's betrayal, not when the wound was still raw. Leroy nodded, not pushing, and Jada was grateful for his quiet understanding. The cafe door jingled, and of course, Noah strolled in his leather jacket, speckled with rain, his blonde hair a mess. "Yo, Jada," he called, grinning like he'd just won the lottery. Mia wasn't with her, but his nickname for her stuck. "Shoot supercar," and Jada groaned, half amused, half exasperated. "You've got to be kidding me," she said, crossing her arms. "What, you got a tracker on me now?" Noah laughed, sliding into the seat across from her. "Nah, I just love the vibe here. Plus, I was in the neighborhood." He winked at Leroy, who raised an eyebrow, but poured him a latte. Thanks, man. You're the real MVP. Leroy's smile was polite, but Jada caught the flicker of curiosity in his eyes, sizing up Noah. She felt caught between them. Leroy's steady warmth, Noah's reckless charm, and it made her head spin. Noah, oblivious, launched into a story about a party where he'd accidentally set off a firework indoors. "I thought I was gonna burn down the club," he said, waving his hands, and Jada couldn't help but laugh, even as she rolled her eyes. "You're a walking disaster," she said, sipping her coffee to hide her smile. Leroy chuckled from the counter, shaking his head, and for a moment, the cafe felt like a bubble shielding her from the world's weight. But the bubble burst that evening. Jada was back at the penthouse cooking spaghetti for Mia when Noah came home, his grin faltering. We got a problem," he said, scratching his neck. "Vanessa's spreading some bullshit online." "About you?" Jada's heart sank. She grabbed her phone, scrolling through a local gossip blog Vanessa had tagged. The post was vicious. Noah Bennett's latest fling, a single mom from the slums, living large in his penthouse. Charity or something more. Comments piled up, some calling. Jada, a gold digger. Others worse, laced with racial undertones. Her hands shook anger and shame, twisting in her gut. "She's full of it," Noah said, his voice hard. "I'll shut it down. My PR guy's on it." Jada shook her head, her voice low. "It's not just her, Noah. People at work are talking too. They think I'm using you." She hated how small she sounded, how the whispers echoed her father's words. "You're a disgrace." Noah stepped closer, his eyes fierce. "Fuck 'em. Jada, you're not using me. You're busting your ass raising Mia, making shit happen. They don't know you." His words hit hard, but they didn't erase the sting. Jada turned away, focusing on the stove, her hands trembling as she stirred the sauce. Mia, coloring at the island, looked up. "Mommy, why you sad?" she asked, and Jada forced a smile, brushing her daughter's braids. "I'm okay, baby." She lied, but the weight of the day pressed heavier. The next night, Jada sought solace at Rainy Days, where Leroy was hosting a community open mic. The cafe was packed, string lights casting a warm glow, the air filled with laughter and the strum of a guitar. Jada brought Mia, who clapped as a poet read a piece about Seattle's gray skies. Leroy took the stage, his fingers coaxing a soulful jazz melody from his guitar, his voice rich and low. Jada watched her heart softening. Leroy was solid, a man who'd weathered storms and come out stronger. When he caught her eye singing a line about finding light in the dark, she felt a pull, safe, steady, real. After his set, he joined her at a table, Mia doodling nearby. "You liked the song?" he asked, his smile shy for a man so confident. "It was beautiful," Jada said, meaning it. "You've got a gift." Leroy leaned closer, his voice low. "Jada, I'm not one for big speeches, but you're special. You and Mia, you deserve someone who's going to show up every day no matter what. I'd like to be that guy if you'll let me." Jada's breath caught his words, a lifeline she hadn't expected. Leroy was everything Noah wasn't, grounded, mature, a father who understood her world. But her heart, stubborn and reckless, flickered with Noah's face, his laugh, that damn kiss. "Leroy," she started, her voice soft. "You're amazing, but I need time." He nodded, his eyes kind, but tinged with disappointment. "Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere." Before Jada could respond, the door jingled and Noah burst in his jacket, dripping, his grin wide. "Holy shit, this place is hopping," he said, spotting Jada and Leroy. Mia waved, shouting, "Shoot! Supercar!" and the crowd laughed, breaking the tension. Jada groaned. "You're unbelievable," she said, but her lips twitched. Noah plopped down, oblivious to Leroy's guarded look, and started raving about the open mic. When a karaoke slot opened, he jumped up, grabbing the mic. "This one's for Mia," he announced, launching into a hilariously off-key rendition of a pop song, complete with dramatic air guitar. Jada covered her face, laughing so hard her sides hurt, and Mia clapped, cheering him on. Even. Leroy cracked a smile, shaking his head. "You're a fool," Jada told Noah as he rejoined them, sweaty and triumphant. "A certified fool. Certified fun fool," he corrected, winking, and Jada's heart did a traitor's flip. Leroy watched his expression unreadable, and she felt caught in a tug-of-war she hadn't signed up for. The real blow came the next day, at the workshop. Jada was pinning fabric when Helen called her to the office. "We've got a visitor," she said. Her tone clipped. Jada's stomach dropped as she saw him, her father standing in the doorway, his face lined, his eyes cold. He looked smaller than she remembered. His coat patched, but his presence filled the room with dread. "Jada," he said, his voice gruff. "We need to talk." She froze, her hands clenching. "There's nothing to say," she managed, her voice low. "You made that clear when you kicked us out." He stepped closer, ignoring Helen's frown. "I was wrong. Okay. But you're making a fool of yourself, shacking up with that rich boy. You think he's serious? He's playing you. And when he's done, you'll be back on the street." The words hit like a slap, tearing open old wounds. Jada's eyes burned, but she squared her shoulders, her voice trembling with fury. "I'm not your failure anymore, Dad. I'm working. I'm providing for Mia. And I don't need you or anyone telling me what I'm worth." She pointed to the door. "Get out." He hesitated, his jaw tight, then turned and left his footsteps echoing. Jada sank into a chair, tears spilling over her hands, shaking. Helen, usually stoic, patted her shoulder. "You're stronger than he knows," she said quietly, and Jada nodded, wiping her eyes, clinging to that truth. That night, back at the penthouse, Mia came down with a fever. Jada panicked her meager savings, not enough for a doctor's visit. Noah, hearing her on the phone with a clinic, grabbed his keys. "I'll get medicine," he said, already halfway out the door. He returned an hour later, soaked from the rain, with a bag of Tylenol Gatorade and inexplicably a pile of candy. "Kids like candy when they're sick, right?" he said, sheepish. And Jada laughed through her tears, the weight of the day lifting. They sat by Mia's bed, Jada holding her daughter's hand, Noah passing her tissues. In the dim light, their knees brushed, and Jada reached for his hand, her voice barely a whisper. "Thank you, Noah. Not just for the candy, for being here." He squeezed her hand, his eyes soft. "Always. Jada." The moment was quiet, fragile, a promise neither could name. But as Mia's fever broke, Jada knew something had shifted, a thread stitching them closer, even as the clouds overhead grew darker. The textile workshop in Pike Place Market buzzed with urgency, the air thick with the scent of fabric dye and the clatter of sewing machines. Jada Thompson hunched over her workstation, her fingers flying as she stitched a sleek navy blue vest for a corporate event. The deadline was tight, 2 days to finish 30 custom pieces for a tech conference hosted by Noah Bennett's company. Her eyes burned from long hours, but every stitch was a defiance, a middle finger to the whispers and doubts that had haunted her all week. Vanessa Harper's vicious gossip had spread like wildfire. The online post, Noah Bennett's latest fling, a single mom from the slums, had seeped into the workshop, fueling sidelong glances and hushed rumors. Jada felt the weight of every stare, the sting of words like gold digger, and worse, laced with the subtle racism she'd faced her whole life in Seattle's progressive veneer. But she kept her head down, her needle steady, determined to prove them wrong. Her boss, Helen, dropped a new assignment on her desk that morning, her expression unreadable. "You're designing a showcase piece for the conference," she said, handing Jada a sketch of a tailored jacket, one of a kind for the keynote speaker. "Can you handle it?" Jada's heart leaped a mix of excitement and terror. Designing wasn't just stitching. It was creation. A chance to resurrect the dreams she'd buried when Mia was born. "Yes, ma'am," she said, her voice firm despite the flutter in her chest. "I won't let you down." She poured herself into the jacket, sketching late into the night at Noah's penthouse. Mia asleep in the guest room. Jada drew inspiration from Seattle, its gray skies, its vibrant waterfront, its resilience. She chose a deep charcoal fabric, weaving in subtle silver threads to mimic rain, and added a lining with a wave pattern, a nod to Puget Sound. Every cut, every seam, felt like a piece of her soul, a declaration that she was more than her past, more than the rumors. Noah noticed her focus, keeping his distance, but leaving small gestures, a mug of coffee on the counter, a post-it note with a goofy, smiley face. Since Mia's fever last week, their dynamic had shifted. The hand-holding by her bedside, his quiet. Always. Jada lingered like a promise. But Jada was still reeling from her father's confrontation, Vanessa's attacks and Leroy's confession at rainy days. Her heart was a battlefield, and Noah, with his reckless charm, was both a refuge and a risk. Thursday night, the eve of the conference. Jada was putting the final stitches on the jacket when her phone buzzed. A voicemail from an unknown number. She played it, her stomach knotting as a woman's voice came through. "Ms. Thompson, this is Karen from Queen Anne Apartments. We have a 2-bedroom unit available. If you can provide pay stubs and a deposit by Saturday, it's yours. Call me back." Jada froze, her needle slipping, a place of her own. Small, affordable, in a safe neighborhood with good schools for Mia. It was everything she'd fought for, a chance to stand on her own feet. But the thought of leaving Noah's penthouse, his warmth, his chaotic candy-buying presence, sent a pang through her chest. She saved the voicemail, her mind spinning, and refocused on the jacket. One step at a time. The conference was held at a sleek convention center downtown, its glass facade reflecting Seattle's cloudy sky. Jada arrived early Friday, delivering the vests and the showcase jacket, her nerves jangling. The event was a whirlwind, tech bros in hoodies, executives in suits booths, showcasing AI gadgets. Jada stayed in the background, adjusting vests for staff, but her eyes kept drifting to Noah, who was in his element, shaking hands, flashing his lopsided grin. He looked sharp in a tailored blazer, but his tie was crooked, and Jada fought the urge to fix it. The keynote speech was the highlight, and when the speaker, a rising star in tech, took the stage in Jada's jacket, the crowd murmured approval. The silver threads caught the lights, the wave lining peeking out as he moved, and Jada's breath caught. It was hers, her vision worn by someone who mattered. Helen, standing nearby, gave her a rare smile. "You nailed it, Thompson. I knew you had it in you." But the real shock came after the speech. Helen pulled Jada aside, her voice low. "You should know Noah pushed for you to get this gig. He saw your work early on, told me you deserved a shot at designing. He didn't want credit. But I'm telling you anyway." Jada's heart stuttered. Noah had believed in her, not just as a charity case or a friend, but as an artist. She scanned the crowd, spotting him by a booth, laughing with a colleague. Their eyes met, and his grin softened like he knew she'd just learned his secret. Jada's throat tightened, a mix of gratitude and something deeper, something she wasn't ready to name. The moment was shattered by Vanessa Harper's arrival. She swept in her blonde hair, gleaming her red dress, hugging every curve. She made a beeline for Noah, her smile predatory, but her eyes locked on Jada, cold and calculating. Jada braced herself, sensing trouble, and she wasn't wrong. Vanessa had escalated her attack, posting a new gossip thread that morning. Noah's penthouse guest has a shady past teen pregnancy. No job, no prospects. Is she after his fortune? The comments were brutal, some openly racist, and Jada's co-workers had been whispering about it all day. Vanessa cornered Jada by the catering table, her voice a venomous purr. Enjoying the spotlight, sweetheart. You're quite the talk of the town. She flicked her hair, her smile sharp. Noah's just slumming it, you know. He'll come back to his real world soon enough. Jada's blood boiled, but she kept her voice steady. Her eyes locked on Vanessa's. You don't know me, and you sure as hell don't know him. Keep my name out of your mouth. Vanessa laughed, unfazed. Cute. But you're out of your league, honey. She sauntered off, leaving Jada trembling with rage. Her hands clenched. The breaking point came during the closing reception. Noah took the stage to announce a new initiative, a foundation to fund housing for Seattle's homeless, inspired, he said, by someone who showed me what strength really looks like. Jada's heart pounded, knowing he meant her. The crowd applauded, but Vanessa, standing nearby, scoffed loudly, her voice carrying. Strength, please. She's just a leech. Noah. Everyone knows it. The room went quiet, heads turning. Jada froze, humiliation burning her cheeks, but Noah's face hardened. He stepped off the stage, his eyes blazing, and faced Vanessa head-on. You're wrong, he said, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Jada Thompson is the strongest person I know. She's a mother, a worker, an artist, and she's done it all, despite people like you tearing her down. She doesn't need me, but I'm damn lucky to be in her life. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others whispering. Vanessa's face flushed her composure, cracking. You're making a fool of yourself, Noah, she hissed. But he didn't flinch. No, Vanessa, you are, he said, his tone final. Get out. He turned away, leaving her standing alone, the crowd parting as she stormed off. Her heels clicking furiously. Jada's eyes burned her chest, tight with a mix of pride and disbelief. Noah crossed the room to her, his expression softening. You okay? He asked, his voice low, and she nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. The applause resumed, but it faded into the background as Noah's hand brushed hers, a quiet anchor in the chaos. That night, back at the penthouse, Jada was still reeling. Mia was asleep, the city lights twinkling outside, and Noah sat on the couch, loosening his tie. Sorry about Vanessa, he said, his voice tired. She's a lot. Jada laughed, a small, shaky sound. That's one way to put it. She hesitated, then sat beside him, her heart racing. Noah, what you said at the conference, did you mean it? He met her gaze, his green eyes steady. Every word. You're incredible, Jada. Not just for Mia, but for you. I saw it the first night at that bus station, and I see it every day. Her throat tightened, and she looked away, her fingers twisting in her lap. I'm scared, she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. Of this, of you, of what happens when I'm not your guest anymore. Noah's hand found hers, warm and steady. You don't have to be scared. I'm not going anywhere, Jada. Not unless you tell me to. The air between them crackled, but Jada pulled back, her heart too raw to cross that line. Again, I need to tell you something, she said, her voice steadier. I got a call today, an apartment in Queen Anne. It's mine if I want it. Noah's face flickered, surprise, then a shadow of sadness. That's awesome, he said, his grin forced. You deserve it, Jada. A place for you and Mia. She nodded, her chest aching. It's what I've been working for. But I'm not sure I'm ready to leave. The admission hung between them heavy with unspoken feelings. Noah exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Stay as long as you want. I mean it. This place, it's better with you guys here. He paused, his voice softer. But I'm happy for you. Really. Jada's eyes stung, and she stood, needing distance. Thanks, Noah, for everything. She retreated to the guest room, her heart a tangle of hope and fear. The apartment was her dream, her independence, but leaving Noah felt like losing something she hadn't fully grasped. The next day, Jada threw herself into work, stitching vests with mechanical precision, her mind on the apartment. She called Karen, confirming the Saturday tour, and checked her bank account. Her savings were just enough for the deposit, a testament to her grit. But the rumors at work lingered, and Tanya's snide comments. Guess you're moving up. Huh? Cut deep, Jada ignored them, focusing on the jacket's success. Noah's words at the conference echoing in her mind. She's the strongest person I know. Noah, meanwhile, was changing. Inspired by Jada, he doubled down on his foundation, meeting with advisors to fund shelters and job programs. He texted her updates. Goofy, but earnest. Just signed a check for a new housing project. Feeling like a grown-up. Jada smiled. Seeing the boy she'd met at the bus station grow into someone who cared, who acted, it made her heart ache, knowing she'd played a part in that Friday night. Noah tried to lighten her mood, insisting on teaching her to sew at the penthouse. Come on, I can't be that bad, he said, grabbing a needle and thread from her kit. He promptly tangled the thread into a knot, cursing under his breath. Okay, how is this harder than driving a Porsche? Jada laughed, her first real laugh in days, and leaned over to guide his hands. Slow down, hotshot. It's not a race. Their fingers brushed, and she felt that familiar spark. But she pulled back, focusing on the needle. Noah grinned undeterred, and when he finally managed a wobbly stitch, he held it up like a trophy. Bow down. I'm a sewing god. You're a sewing disaster, Jada teased, but her smile lingered, warming the room. Saturday morning. Jada stood outside the Queen Anne apartment complex, a modest brick building with ivy climbing its walls. Karen, the manager, showed her the unit. 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a living room with a view of the Space Needle. It was plain but clean, a blank canvas for her and Mia. Jada's heart swelled pride, mixing with bittersweet longing. She handed over her pay stubs, promising the deposit by Monday, and Karen nodded. It's yours, Ms. Thompson. Welcome home. Back at the penthouse. Jada found Noah in the kitchen flipping pancakes with Mia, who was giggling as batter splattered. Mommy, shoot. Supercar's making a mess. Mia squealed, and Noah fake glared, waving a spatula. Snitch, he said, then turned to Jada, his grin softening. How'd it go? She took a breath, her voice steady. I got it. The apartment. It's mine. Noah's face lit up, but his eyes held a flicker of sadness. That's huge, Jada. I'm proud of you. He paused, then added, Gonna miss you guys, though. Jada's throat tightened and she nodded, unable to speak. Mia, oblivious, hugged Noah's leg, leaving flour on his jeans, and Jada's heart cracked. This was her future independent stability. But why did it feel like leaving a piece of herself behind? The Queen Anne apartment smelled of fresh paint and possibility. Jada Thompson stood in the empty living room, her sneakers echoing on the hardwood floor, sunlight streaming through a lone window to cast golden slats across the bare walls. It was small, 2 bedrooms, a modest kitchen, a living room just big enough for a couch and a TV, but it was hers. After weeks of scraping by, of leaning on Noah Bennett's kindness, she'd done it. She'd built a home for herself and Mia, brick by brick, stitch by stitch. The move-in day was a whirlwind. Jada's savings had covered the deposit and first month's rent, leaving her budget tight, but manageable. She'd packed light clothes, Mia's stuffed bunny, a few kitchen essentials from thrift stores, but every box felt like a victory. Noah had insisted on lending his Porsche and a driver to haul their things, and Jada, too tired to argue, had let him. "It's not charity," he'd said, flashing that lopsided grin. "It's just faster than a U-Haul." Now, as she set a box labeled Mia's Toys on the counter, Jada felt a mix of pride and unease. Leaving Noah's penthouse was the right move. Independence was her North Star, the proof she wasn't her father's failure. But the ache in her chest, the thought of not seeing Noah's messy blonde hair or hearing Mia's giggles over his goofy antics was sharper than she'd expected. Their connection, fragile and unspoken, hovered like a question. Neither had dared to answer. Mia bounded in from the hallway, her braids bouncing her eyes wide with excitement. "Mommy, my room's huge," she squealed, twirling in a circle. "Can I paint it purple and put stars on the ceiling?" Jada laughed, ruffling her daughter's hair. "One thing at a time, baby. Let's get settled first." Mia's joy was infectious, but Jada's mind drifted to Noah. He'd been quiet since she'd told him about the apartment, his usual chatter replaced by a thoughtful silence. She wondered what he was feeling. Relief maybe at having his space back. Or something else. Something closer to the spark she'd felt in his touch. The doorbell buzzed, startling her. Jada opened it to find Leroy Carter, his broad frame filling the doorway, a wooden sign in his hands. "Rainy Days" was etched on his flannel shirt, and his warm smile eased the knot in her chest. "Heard you got a new place," he said, his deep voice steady. "Thought I'd bring a housewarming gift." Jada stepped aside, letting him in. "Leroy, you didn't have to." She glanced at the sign, her breath catching. It read, "Jada's Designs" in elegant script, the wood polished to a shine. "This is..." "Wow, it's beautiful." "For your future," Leroy said, his eyes kind. "You're gonna do big things." "Jada, I know it." He set the sign on the counter, and Mia ran over, hugging his leg. "Shoot coffee," she chirped, and Leroy chuckled, crouching to her level. "That's me, little lady. You like your new castle?" Mia nodded, launching into a spiel about her purple room dreams, and Jada's heart swelled. Leroy had been a rock. His quiet support at the cafe, his confession at the open mic, but she gently turned him down, her heart stubbornly fixed on Noah. Leroy had taken it with grace, promising to stay a friend, and here he was proving it. As they chatted, the doorbell buzzed again. Jada opened it, and there was Noah balancing a cardboard box with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. His blonde hair was damp from the drizzle. His Seahawks hoodie rumpled, and behind him stood a woman Jada recognized. Lily, his assistant who'd helped with Jada's job paperwork weeks ago. "Delivery service," Noah said, stepping inside. "Figured you could use some extra hands." Lily smiled, setting down a bag of groceries and some snacks, moving's hungry work. Her warmth was genuine, and Jada felt a pang of gratitude for the people who'd become her unlikely allies. Mia squealed, tackling Noah's legs. "Shoot supercar, you came." Noah laughed, hoisting her onto his shoulder, and Jada's chest tightened. Mia adored him, and seeing them together, his goofy grin, her infectious giggles, made the idea of leaving him behind feel like a betrayal. The group got to work unpacking boxes and arranging what little furniture. Jada had a second-hand couch, a wobbly table, Mia's bed. Noah predictably turned it into a circus, pretending to test the couch by flopping onto it dramatically. "Solid," he declared, sprawling out, and Mia jumped on him, giggling. Leroy shook his head, hauling a box to the kitchen, but his smile was fond, like he couldn't help liking Noah despite himself. Jada caught Noah's eye as he disentangled himself from Mia, and he flashed her a look, half teasing, half serious, that sent a shiver through her. She busied herself with unpacking, avoiding the pull of his gaze, but the tension between them was a live wire, sparking with every glance. Mid-afternoon, Jada decided to host a small housewarming, a way to thank everyone. She ordered pizza. Her first purchase as a tenant, a small thrill, and set up a makeshift picnic on the living room floor. The group sat cross-legged passing slices, the room filled with laughter and the scent of pepperoni. Mia held court, showing off a drawing she'd made 3 stick figures, Jada, Mia, and Noah standing under a starry Seattle sky. "That's us," she said, pointing, and Jada's throat tightened, her eyes flicking to Noah. He studied the drawing, his grin softening. "Looks like a masterpiece, kid," he said, ruffling Mia's braids, but his gaze lingered on Jada, heavy with unspoken words. Leroy, sensing the moment, cleared his throat. "I gotta head back to the cafe," he said, standing. "Jamal's probably burning muffins again." He hugged Jada, his embrace warm and steady. "You ever need me? You know where to find me." "Thanks, Leroy," Jada said, her voice thick. "For everything." He nodded, waving to Mia, and left his absence, leaving a quiet wait. Lily followed soon after, citing a work call, but not before slipping Jada a card with her number. "For anything, job stuff, kid stuff, or just coffee," she said, smiling. Jada nodded, grateful for the ally, and then it was just her, Mia, and Noah. The apartment, feeling both full and empty. Noah lingered, helping clean up pizza boxes, his usual chatter subdued. Jada watched him, her heart a tangle of gratitude and longing. He'd changed since that rainy night at the bus station. Less reckless, more purposeful. His foundation work a testament to the man he was becoming. But leaving his penthouse meant leaving him, and the thought was a knife's edge. As Mia napped on the couch, exhausted from the day, Jada and Noah stood in the kitchen, the city humming outside. "So," he said, leaning against the counter, his voice casual but his eyes intense. "This is it, huh? Your new start?" Jada nodded, her fingers tracing the Jada's design sign. "Yeah, it's everything I wanted." She paused, then met his gaze. "But it's hard, Noah. Leaving your place, leaving you." His grin faded, replaced by something raw. "I'm not going anywhere. Jada, you and Mia, your family now, whether you're here or in Timbuktu." He stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, and her breath caught the air between them. Electric. Before she could speak, the doorbell buzzed, shattering the moment. Jada frowned, opening it to find Vanessa Harper, her blonde hair sleek, her designer coat pristine. Jada's stomach dropped. Vanessa's last attack at the conference had been brutal, and her presence here was a red flag. "Jada," Vanessa said, her smile tight. "I owe you an apology. What I did, the posts, the rumors. It was wrong." Her voice was smooth, but her eyes were cold, calculating. Jada crossed her arms, her voice steel. "You don't get to waltz in here and wipe the slate clean, Vanessa. You tried to tear me down. You tried. Why should I trust you now?" Vanessa's composure flickered, but she pressed on. "I was jealous." "Okay. Noah's different with you. I see that now. I just want to make it right." Noah, standing behind Jada, snorted. "Save it, Vanessa. You don't do. Sorry, unless there's a catch." His tone was hard, and Jada felt a surge of gratitude for his unwavering support. Vanessa's eyes flashed, but she backed off, her heels clicking as she left. "Your loss?" she muttered, the door slamming behind her. Jada exhaled, her hands trembling, but Noah's hand on her shoulder grounded her. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft, and she nodded, leaning into his touch for a moment before pulling away. "Yeah, she said, forcing a smile. Just done with her drama. The day wound down, and Noah lingered, helping set up Mia's bed. As they worked, he pulled a box from his pocket, his grin shy. "Got you something?" he said, handing it to Jada. Inside was a vintage sewing machine, its metal worn but polished with a note for Jada's designs. "I bet you'll make magic with this, Noah." Jada's eyes stung, her fingers tracing the machine's curves. "Noah, this is too much," she said, her voice thick. "Nah, it's just right," he said, his grin back. "Found it at a flea market." Guy said, "It's got stories. Figured you'd give it new ones." She laughed, tears spilling over, and impulsively hugged him, her arms tight around his neck. He hugged her back, warm and steady, and for a moment the world was just them, the hum of Seattle fading away. Mia's voice broke the spell. "Sleepy from the couch mommy is. Shoot supercar staying." They pulled apart laughing, and Jada wiped her eyes. "Not tonight, baby," she said, but her gaze lingered on Noah. A silent question. He caught it, his voice low. "How about coffee tomorrow? Just you and me. No penthouse, no drama, just us." Jada's heart raced, but she nodded, a smile breaking through. "Coffee sounds good. Shoot supercar." He laughed, ruffling Mia's braids as he headed for the door. "Deal. See you tomorrow, Jada." He paused, his eyes holding hers, then slipped out, leaving the apartment quiet, but alive with possibility. Jada tucked Mia into her new bed, the room bare, but full of promise. "Mommy, are we happy now?" Mia asked, her voice sleepy, her bunny nestled close. "Yes, baby," Jada whispered, kissing her forehead. "We are." She stood moving to the living room window where Seattle's lights twinkled like stars. The city had been her crucible. Rain, rejection, redemption. But it had also given her this, a home, a future, and maybe, just maybe, a love she hadn't dared dream of. Her phone buzzed a text from her father. "Found some of Mia's old toys." "I'm sorry, Jada." She stared at it, her heart heavy but resolute. She'd forgive him one day, but not now. Now was for her, for Mia, for the life she'd built. She deleted the message, her fingers steady, and turned back to the window. Noah's sewing machine sat on the counter, a symbol of her dreams, and Jada smiled, imagining the designs she'd create, the stories she'd tell. Tomorrow, she'd meet him for coffee, see where this spark led. For the first time in years, she wasn't afraid. She was ready for love, for life, for whatever came next under Seattle's endless lights. "Hey, you made it to the end of Jada's journey, and I'm so thrilled you're here. What did you think of her new beginning? Are you rooting for her and Noah? Or do you think Leroy's still got a shot? Drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from and share your favorite moment. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so we can keep exploring stories that light up the night. Let's meet again under the city lights.